Okay, we're recording. So this is my or a different version of a bleed bow gladiator build. It uses battle cry for instant war cries, so you can have war cries in your left click, which is really nice. I'll be showing you guys how it feels. It's a T15 map, so fairly tanky. Awakened 6. I'm not going to pick up anything. Overall, the build feels pretty good on a 5 link, a double 5 link using split arrow as a 5 link. Um, we use Blood Rage for Frenzy generation, Enduring Cry for Endurance Charge generation, Steel Skin. Eventually, we would want to get Wall Molten Shell. We use Vulnerability Curse to apply a curse, obviously. Eventually, if we could get really good gear, we would want to get a Vuln Ring, which would be super nice. You could remove the curse from your sockets with diviners. Dash for a movement skill. Ensnaring arrow for single target or if a rare is too tanky. Blood Stance, War Banner, and Pride. I guess we're already in Blood Stance, but preferably you would want to clear with Sand Stance and switch to a Blood Stance for a single target. Use Ensnaring Arrow with Mirage Archer to apply Ensnaring Arrow, which makes the monsters take more damage when they're bleeding. Also, you would want to get yourself an eye level 83 Elder Belt. It doesn't matter what. Preferably a Citadel bow, but that might be really expensive. You would want to get yourself maybe Rampage Gloves. I forgot what those are called, but at full endurance charges, they give you Rampage. What else? You would want to get yourself a quiver with physical dot damage over time. The single target in this build kind of sucks, I would say. It's not too great, but you know, for not having a specific type of bow, it's pretty good. There's that. Now passive tree. Pathing wise, I go this way. We get the attack speed go down here. Get Art of the Gladiator first for leveling, just so we can equip a armor without getting movement penalties. Then we head down, grab Deadly Draw and Deadly or Heavy Draw. We head left, grab Golem's Blood, go for Dirty Techniques and Iron Reflexes. Like, let's say you're using a Gold Rim. The Gold Rim will give you evasion. You're using evasion based gear or hybrid evasion and armor. It would give you it would convert that evasion to armor, and then eventually we would head left, grab War Cries, get yourself an Enduring Cry, or if you want slightly more damage, you would use a Rallying Cry, and then you put that in your left click. Head down into Bloodletting, grab Soul of Steel. If you're having issues with stats, you would grab your stat points, obviously. Unwavering, we grab later. Head over here to Bloodless, go through here, grab Red Storm, head up here, grab Juggernaut. We would probably ignore the endurance charges early on. Grab RT. If you're feeling like you're kind of squishy, low on life, start grabbing some life nodes. Maybe head into the Marauder section. Head up here. The reason why we head into Spiritual Aid is because Spiritual Aid affects the your hits, your dots, and the explosion of the bleeds, which is really nice. Something I didn't like, which I was using earlier, is going for a Disciple of Unyielding. It's just hard to sustain during a boss. So yeah, you would, if you went Disciple of Unyielding, you would drop this, go for Warcries, and you have infinite sustain on endurance charges. Get Chaos Res, which is always really nice. This node is very powerful, being the only life Chaos node in the game. Anoint cleaving. If you can't afford cleaving, anointing aspect of the eagle isn't so bad. It gives you it gives you life, movement, speed, and damage over time. Anything else you could anoint? Oh, I guess you could anoint yourself Master of Force. That one's also not bad to anoint, but overall, I would probably not anoint anything else. But yeah, go for an eye level 83 Elder bow. Any base, preferably higher than level 50 level requirement. Citadel being the best. Getting yourself a quiver with Fizz Dot. If you want Rampage, go for those Rampage gloves. Or if you don't want that, you could go for your Bleed Fizz gloves. You could use a Reslatha's Coil. It's the belt that increases your max physical damage and lowers your min for better punctures. The skills we are using, just to go over it, preferably we would want to use Molten Shell with increased duration and second wind, just to reduce the cooldown. Flesh and Stone for sand stance when clearing, and then blood stance when fighting the boss. Vuln for applying a curse to the boss, so it takes more damage with explosions of the monsters exploding, or a single target with your punctures. Dash for movement with second wind. And Enduring Cry linked together, so it reduces the cooldown of Enduring Cry. Blood Rage for increased attack speed and Frenzy Charge generation. Ensnaring Arrow with Mirage Archer. And this would apply to bosses or heavy or really tanky rares. But yeah, for more single target damage and dot. Auras, War Banner, Pride, and then Flesh and Stone, obviously. Our six link for Split Arrow would be Deadly Ailments, Vicious Purge, Chance to Bleed, Brutality, and Swift Affliction. Note one thing: be careful when you're getting a Pierce Quiver. If you have a Pierce Quiver, or the jewel that gives Pierce, or even just anointing Pierce, it would mess your Ensnaring Arrow up. The way Ensnaring Arrow works, it has to hit the target, but if it goes through, it doesn't apply Snare, is what I was told, and you know, which is obviously bad, then you're losing at a huge amount of damage. Puncture, same thing. For simplicity's sake, I just put in the same category. Deadly Ailments, Vicious, Chance to Bleed, Brutality, Swift Affliction. And yeah, that's probably it. Build-wise, this build is pretty strong. But the only difficulty and issue is it's good for clearing, but getting yourself a eye level 83 Elder Bow is really hard, especially in SSF when you don't really have a great single target, and Elder is a lot harder to go for nowadays. Quivers, you would want to get yourself a Broadhead Quiver. You could go for the chest piece, the unique chest piece with Pierce, level 15 Pierce. I think it's one of the Lion Eyes type of gear. Helmet, just a rare. Jade Amulet with rare. Anointed Cleaving. 2 stone rings or resistance rings, or if you want to be a bit tankier, you could go for Vermilion rings. I'm using the Magnet right now because I don't have any other good belts, but preferably you would want to use maybe a Stygian with added Flat Fizz to one of the Abyssal Jewels, or go for a Rustic Sash with 24% increased physical damage, which affects the explosions again, or a Life Belt, for just more life. Rare Boots, gloves with physical damage, maybe some sort of Chance to Bleed or dot. I know boots can get some sort of dot, Any unique bow will do for leveling. Just don't use the don't use this bow, because it screws up with your it screws with your ensnaring arrow. But overall, yeah, this is my version of the build. Oh, something I almost forgot. Ascendancies. The way I leveled is I leveled as a bow using split arrow, puncture, vuln, ensnaring arrow. It's very good. It's very strong for a solo self build. Solo self found build. We go for blood in the eyes. Helps us, chance to bleed enemies maimed and blind. We go for gratuitous violence, just helps us clear while leveling, is extremely good. Some people like to go for this first. I get why. More attack speed, more movement speed. Really good if you're trying to go zoom zoom. And then for Uber Lab, we would go for Outmatch and Outlast. 10%, reduced physical damage taken while at maximum endurance charges. We have permanent uptime of endurance charges, so that's really good. Frenzy charges, 10% more damage while at maximum frenzies, really good. We don't have 100% uptime, but what we could do, if you wanted to invest, you could probably go for 4 points here and get yourself one minimum, and then get two minimum frenzies on a two rings or a ring amulet. Or if you don't want to go for this, you could just go for amulet with minimum frenzies and then two rings with minimum frenzies. For crafting a bow, you would want to use corroded fossils and jagged, so two socket resonators. Just for simplicity's sake, if you get yourself a cluster jewel, you would drop the minion nodes, head into here, grab. This is what I went for, just because this is what I exalted and just what I had right now. You would go for battle hardened, master of the fundamentals, furious assault. Go for two jewel sock or two medium cluster jewels. Preferably, you would want the physical dot, but there's also the percent just damage dot, which would affect bleeds too. If you get yourself a lion's eye fall, you would go for cleaving. I don't go for slaughter just because I feel like we already have so much attack speed. There's really no point in going for this. Also, lion eyes fall doesn't hit cleaving, which is really unfortunate. We go for the razor's edge because this affects damage over time for bleeding, which is also really nice. Anything else? Oh yeah, if you get a intuitive leap, you would want to put it here for an extra endurance charge. So meaning 6, a bit more resistances, and dirty techniques. You could also go for this point. It's actually a very good single point for 25 increased bleed. It's really powerful. But overall, this is my my version of the bleed bow gladiator. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You guys have a great day. This is my version of the build, and ciao.